Joined now by West Virginia's Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito. She was a member of the congressional delegation that traveled to Germany and to Poland over this past weekend. And Senator Capito, thanks for being with us now that you're back. I'm just curious at the start here, what struck you most about what you saw and what you heard while you were in the region?
Well, a couple of things, Garrett, and thanks for having me on. First of all, this is an unjust and an immoral war where Putin is bombing and killing children and families. Second, the Ukrainian people are united and they're fighters, and they're going to fight to the end. Third, and not necessarily in this order, but NATO is strong, and NATO is together and probably in a much more powerful position to have a united position than probably since World War II. And then also that the United States is doing so much, but Poland is incredible as a partner, as a military, and also as a humanitarian partner. We went to refugee centers, saw those families. It's heartbreaking.
Talk to me more about this refugee crisis. The reporting has been so excellent, but I feel like we're still only seeing the tip of the iceberg about how bad the situation might get there. What did you see at these refugee centers, and are we in the West, in the U.S., prepared for what might be a very long-term effort to support these people?
Well, what we're seeing is on the Polish border, which is where we were at that refugee center, we saw probably 1,500 families, mostly women and children, elderly as well. We saw NGOs and others feeding as much as 6,000 meals per day. And then they are sort of processing into this and then moving into either Poland, Germany, or the woman that I spoke with was going to the UK with her 6- and 8-year-old. She left her husband, her home, her parents behind, 2 miles from the Russian border. It's so compelling. She kept saying, please help us, please do more. And I think the human crisis of millions of people leaving that country has only begun to sink in.
Do you think there will be more for the U.S. Senate to do, for the administration to do? You guys passed $14 billion nearly in aid just a week or two ago now. The president's started to spend some of that money, $800 million, I think, for Ukraine's military. How much more can Congress, should the administration do to help on both those fronts, the humanitarian and the military front?
I think there's no question we can and will do more. They gave us a list, one of the groups we met with, a list of more Javelin, Stingers, helicopters, air support, anti-aircraft. These are the things that our $14 billion is going to go towards on the military and lethal side. But, you know, we need to keep doing this, and I think that we don't want to give them just enough to stay in the fight. We have to win this. They have to win this, and they're going to fight to the end. And so I think that on the humanitarian side, our NGOs are moving fast. You know, time is another issue. When we think of, oh, in 2 weeks we're going to do this, well, we're 23 days into this, so every day is crucial.
Can enough be done for Ukraine to win this only with the U.S. sending money and materiel? The discussion about a no-fly zone continues to come up. It continues to be knocked down. Do you think we might ultimately be headed that direction? And would you support such a thing, maybe as a red line for some future act in that country?
You know, at this point, it is not just the United States, and we need to remember that. These are the NATO nations. This is their not backyard, their front yard. And they know that if Putin is successful, who's next? Is it the Baltic states? Is it Moldova? This is a question that was recurring. So what stops him? And then would he use nuclear weapons, which is a very critical question here. I don't see us going to a no-fly zone. I think that if we equip the Ukrainians with what they need as NATO and as a coalition, ramp up even more sanctions on the oligarchs, I think that we can put more pressure on Putin than he's felt right now.
What was your conversation like in Poland and in Germany about the possibility that this might spill over and become a NATO-involved conflict, either by intentional Russian aggression or by miscalculation down the line?
Well, I would say that obviously everybody's on heightened alert about that, and as I said, this is their front yard. Certainly, Poland would be, I can think, considered at the tip of the spear with the involvement they are doing with moving humanitarian goods, with moving people in and out, with staging NATO troops along, that include American troops in and around. We've always had a training presence there, and we maintain that. So I think it's more of a readiness question, quite frankly. We've got to be ready. ready. Hopefully we won't have to use that as a readiness measure, that we're prepared but not have to move in that direction. I don't think we can sit back at this point and think there's nothing he won't do. Oh, he won't come into NATO. I think he's shown us if he can kill women and children in innocence in a country like Ukraine, he'll do anything.
And Senator, while I have you, I got to ask you about the other big thing going on Capitol Hill today, the Supreme Court confirmation hearing for Judge Jackson. You're not on the Judiciary Committee, but you did meet with her last week. I'm curious if you consider her qualified for the High Court and if you are still open to potentially supporting her after these hearings are done.
I did have the pleasure of meeting her. She is qualified. She has a very distinguished not only academic record, but also her judicial career has been filled with decisions. So it's not like we can, we're going to have to guess what direction or what leanings she might have. I think what we'll see here is the Judiciary Committee asking questions. I'm going to reserve what I'm going to do at the end after I hear that, but I do think judicial philosophy is a part of it. I'm remaining open-minded, but she is a very impressive woman, and I found her quite engaging.
I have to ask you about one of your colleagues who's been very public with his criticisms of Judge Jackson. Josh Hawley has been out there talking about her record on sentencing sex offenders. Her sentencing has been similar to what other federal judges have done. I wonder if you think that's an unfair line of attack from Senator Hawley, whom our viewers are seeing with his opening statement now.
I don't know the details of what Senator Hawley is basing his conjectures on, quite honestly. I know that she told me more than a few times when I would bring questions about certain issues, she said, please look at my record, please, because I'd ask her about getting cases overturned and what does this mean and how to frame it. So I think we got to stick to the facts here. I certainly think that the best thing that we can do is treat her with the dignity that she deserves. If we disagree with her and her how she might serve as a Supreme Court justice, that's what we should be basing our decision on.
Senator Capito, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Garrett.